record.
Also make a co-host.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I mean, we're going to start spoiling everything we're going to be talking about, so we won't go too much more into detail.
I don't want to go over your talk before your talk.
Yeah, but it's something that's very much we spent a lot of time sort of researching how to do this the best way we can. And we're very much coming from as a beginner point of view with it all, but we're excited to be able to show what we've done and kind of talk about our process and all that sort of stuff.
So are you developers, is this your day job or is this your hobby?
It's both.
Yeah.
So recently gone from it being a hobby to being a part-time job, while our day job is a job share. So it means that we're sort of working together in two different things. Half the time working for
Time to go downstairs.
half the time working as a creative technologist, and half the time working on closed forum and making games and things like that.
Okay. Do you get involved in any IoT stuff? Physical computing? Oh, that's one of my things. I do IoT. So like code on Raspberry Pi, and then the Raspberry Pi interacts with its environment.
Cool.
I thought you could use that to sort of respond to the environment around you. You know, in your game you've got a joystick and buttons, but you could censor there's someone interacting in front of the terminal, or set fireworks off. Whatever.
It's definitely something we'd want to learn more about as well.
Yeah, 100%. Because Matt, you did a lot of stuff.
Some more of these sessions.
You did a lot of
those
stuff
like. Cliff is now modeling the latest Raspberry Pi Mini, I think. Oh, I don't know that one.
Wow, it's so small now.
Oh, they're ESP32s.
Oh, okay.
And you can use Nano Framework and write .NET, C#, and it'll run on these boards.
Oh,
that one's £9. That one is £14.
Wow.
And you can come and see my talk next week for .NET North, where I talk about how you interface with a Raspberry Pi and write C# code with it, and then drive it from the internet using Azure IoT Hub, and also get inputs back from a device to wherever you are, real time.
Oh, awesome.
And is that? Yeah, I'd really love to come to that.
Or you could come on you can go to that as well, because I'm going to go along. But also you can come on the 15th of November to a Flight into IoT, which is Tech Days things that'll be on Learn.tv, Microsoft Learn.tv, and we're going to use that ESP32 because I'm still writing the code for it, sending data from this up to IoT Hub, and then via time series insights and Power BI, and then show a dashboard of this pretending to fly across Europe. So all the flight dynamics, temperature, pressure, altitude, etc. All being sent from a £14 device. And I'm currently writing. There's a little camera there. I'm not sure if you can see it, because this is an ESP32 cam. So that's a little OVO camera, and I'm writing a library that works with Nano Framework to take camera images as well, but it's not finished yet. So.
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah, I mean, we very much. I don't know how, sort of in terms of our talk, I don't know how interesting it's going to be in terms of, because we are very much beginners, but we talk about kind of how we come from a beginner and from an art side, but that's incredible, because that's well beyond our initial understanding, but we really...
Well, I mean, there's an opportunity to get symbiosis here. People can chip in ideas. You've got a certain perspective, we've got a different perspective,
No,
if anyone else wants to come off mute, feel free and join in the conversation. I noticed Liam's joined us from Fruition.
Hi everyone, how you doing?
Good, yeah. We originally were going to hold this face-to-face, but due to at a request, we went online again.
Yeah, apologies, that's my fault. Unfortunately, I am high risk at the moment, so I'm not really going to public spaces. So I'm still kind of semi-sheltering in place, just because, I've got a myriad of health issues that I'm just trying to sort of stay away from.
No problem at all. We're happy to accommodate. I think we gained a few extras because we weren't back online. We lost a few, we gained a few.
Well, thank you very much for being accommodating. That's really appreciated.
Thank you very much for doing
I've
that.
only managed to make it because it's online. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there in person. So.
Well, yeah. Let us know when you think most of the cohort will be here, then we can kick off.
Well, give it a couple of minutes.
Yeah. No worries.
How many are we expecting? I haven't looked recently.
That's such a cool mask.
That's making me think of Tron.
Yeah.
It's Squid Games. It's Frontman of Squid Games.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it is. It's such a good mask, that.
It's just come up the 3D printer. It's my two teenage sons want to dress up as the front man. They couldn't decide who was going to be front man, who was going to be a square, triangle, or circle. So they both wanted a front man mask, and they're going to have their mates dressed up. So 3D printed.
That's so cool.
3D printers back to doing actual, proper work now, as opposed to printing masks for kids. But there you go.
So what do you do with the 3D printing normally?
At the moment, I've got one that's printing a load of logos that are going onto PCs in a server room for a client. And they want their company logo and project logo on the front of the PC. So they know which one is which. Other than that, it's project boxes and bits and bobs for client projects. So, yeah. So.
And is it your own 3D printer, or do you? Oh, because I know they can be super expensive to get sort of set up on and all that.
No, I've got two Prusa Mark IIIs. So one costs just over 1,000, the other one's about 800. But yeah, I mean they've come down massively in price since I bought them. They're about 600 each now.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still a fair bit of money, but you can pick up an Ender 3 Pro for a couple £100 now off eBay and Amazon. So it's just the cheaper ones. You just have to play with them more. You have to sort of set them up more, and it's more fiddly. But then you learn about 3D printing from it. So it's kind of give and take, really. I don't have time to vet one play with them, and I need decent quality. So I've gone with slightly higher spec ones.
That's fair. Yeah. The only I can't remember what model it was. The only time I've really used it, because I used to work at Leeds Beckett University, and we used to. I used to be in the film school there, and they used to do some 3D printing for like sort of sets and models and things we used to do, and that was a fortune. I remember when they first got that, this was back in sort of 2010, so it was it really was pretty scary, the price back then. But yeah, that's great that they come down in price, because they're so cool to use. We had a lot of fun just making some crazy like horror film characters and all that sort of stuff. They're really good.
Yeah.
I saw it in action for the first time last week, actually, and I could not stop staring at it. It literally is like magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you can get distracted and just sit there and watch it before you know an hour's gone past. It's like, darn it, I've been caught again.
It's hypnotic, isn't it? It's very hypnotic.
Yeah. So especially when you're watching the first couple of layers to make sure it adheres to the bed. If you're doing like a print you've not done before and you don't trust it's going to stick to the print bed, I have to watch the first layer or two just to make sure it sticks. But then before I know it, I'm up to layer 20 and I've been there for an hour.
Because sometimes something goes wrong, so you watch it and it's fine. You turn your head and it's gone wrong, and it's slightly detached. It's like, oh, if I only had been there to watch it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I have a lot of prints loaded on the printer, and I know I can trust them, so I can just click print and walk away. I know it's going to work. But yeah.
Has anyone been following the C#8 debacle at the moment?
No.
In terms of the open source, people got really upset because Live Reload was going to be made.
Reload, yeah.
Hot Reload was going to be made a paid Visual Studio feature.
It wasn't paid. It was still going to be. It was just going to be in Visual Studio. So even if you had the Community Edition, it was still going to work. It was just they were taking it out of the CLI so that it didn't cause issues on Mac and Linux and stuff. Well, that's my understanding anyway. So,
well, it upset a lot of the sort of open source proponents in Microsoft. But then Microsoft U-turned and said, yes, the senior manager who demanded this, well, we're just going to ignore him, and we've listened to
Thing is, though, everyone kicked off, but it's brand new. It's not even in Visual Studio 19. It's only a Visual Studio 2022 thing. So it's ultra brand new, and it's like everyone's kicking off about it. But it's like, well, hold on, it's a new toy. You've not had chance to kind of use that much yet. So I mean, I only use it a few times. It is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in fact, you don't need to stop your app. You just click the little fire button, and it reloads your code. And keeps the state as well, so it keeps all your state, your classes and models and that. But it's brand spanking new, so it's like, you know, it's like giving a kid a toy at Christmas and just taking it away again.
There was a lot of pain expressed on Twitter. I was following Twitter for several days. It was just sheets and sheets of people saying, "They've taken it out. How dare they?" And then they listened.
But they weren't actually taking it out, were they? My understanding that they were taking it out of the CLI, leaving it in Visual Studio 2022 where it works, and then going to sort out the CLI. But it's the fact they took the chunk of code out of the GitHub project, didn't they? So that's kind of what upset everyone. But like I say, it's brand spanking new. So most people that are kicking off probably had never used it. They're just kicking off just to beat up on Microsoft. That's my thought anyway.
Liam, I see you in the offices tonight. What's going on in Fruition HQ?
Lots going on. Busy as ever, probably busier than I've ever seen it. I have never had so many contract roles on at once. I'm looking to fill 8 .NET contracts at the moment, ranging from 3 to 6 months, all outside IR35. So, I'm not leaving the office early often, put it that way.
Okay, well, that's a good problem to have. Excellent.
Yes, it's a great problem to have.
Right, I think we could make a start. I mean, there's a lot of .NET talks at the moment on C#8. Scott Hanselman's being flown into London, but we're trying to showcase local talent. And when I saw Matt and Adam's effort as part of the Compass Festival in Leeds, I was sure we had to get them on. It's all built doing Unity technologies we've had on Leeds Sharp before, so I'm very interested in what these guys have got to say. How do you want to handle questions? Do you want people to sort of fire them out as you're going along, or put them in the chat, or wait till after?
For us, like we've put it as like a presentation where we're going to talk through some video clips and images, but really we want this to be as much of a conversation as possible. We're aware that most of us probably sit in front of a screen throughout the day anyway, so we don't want this to be really dry and boring. Or if you have any questions, either add them in the chat and Adam will read them to me, because I'm probably going to be looking at the presentation, or just shout them out. Like, we've built enough time into it for questions, but that can be at the end or at any point. Feel free to like unmute yourself and just talk throughout if you want, or turn off your camera and mute, whatever you feel best with. Me and Adam will like lead this conversation about how we've made this project, and a little bit of context about how we got to where we are now with this project, where we started from, but we'll try to get through that quickly and get more onto the most recent project. But as I say, just feel free to chip in at any point you want. So with that being said, shall I just start?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so you can all see this, right?
Yeah.
I'll assume you can. Cool. So that's me and Adam. We've worked together since 2016. We have been working on a freelance basis and on a project-to-project basis, mostly voluntary, if we're honest, and working on art projects. It's only been this year that we've actually registered as a company, and we're making this more and more our living. We also work as a job share for an organization called Leeds 2023. which is a company that is set up to run the Leeds Year of Culture in 2023. So it's going to be like hundreds of events across the city. It was going to be like a European Capital of Culture bid, but obviously with us leaving the EU, that is not happening. So Leeds City Council put some money aside anyway, and from that, a charity set up and then got its own funding. So we've only just started working there in the role of creative technologist in August, and we're a job share. And the reason we went for this job share is so we can work part-time on that project and working with other organizations and artists across the city to like showcase what they're doing, but also kind of because it freed us up to focus on our own games and projects we're working on as well.
And then I don't know if you talk about this later, Matt, but as part of Leeds 2023, we recently did a game jam.
Yeah. So we're going to very quickly talk about what we do at Leeds 2023 because we think it's sort of relevant, but it's sort of breezed by that a little bit and go on to what we're working on. We are running a bunch of prototyping events at the moment. So the first one we ran was part of Leeds Digital Festival, which was a international game jam where we put together some briefs by local artists and creatives as inspiration for the game jam. So I don't know if any of you have done a game jam before, but it's usually like bringing loads of people together in a room to test out new ideas, code things together, experiment and prototype. But we made it an online one so we could work with international participants and then showcase their work as part of Leeds Digital Festival. And we ran it on a platform called GatherTown, which is essentially like Zoom, but you have little avatars that walk around and it uses like spatial sound and video. So like you wouldn't see my sound and video unless I walked up to you in the space, and then my microphone would turn on and my camera would appear. So we designed this like virtual Leeds world that you can see here on the screen, just with like video game assets. And this is like a really zoomed out view of it. It's actually like real, like the little traffic cones on the bottom are actually like the size of your character would be. So it's quite like a detailed world to explore. And then as you see here, like as you walked up to people, or we set it so the stage would also amplify people's camera. So if they walked on the stage, then they'd be like doing a presentation to everyone in the room. So these are like the panelists on the stage, and then everyone else sat in the audience, which was quite fun. So that's one of the projects we've been working on. And then another one is an international prototyping project called Tech for the Public Good, which is bringing together creatives, academics, and artists from across the world. We've got 5 from the UK, 1 from Mexico, 1 from Ghana, 1 from Iraq,
Lebanon and Syria and Nepal.
Thank you. Yeah, to sort of like spend 10 days prototyping together to come up with a tech solution for whatever of the world's problems that they deem that they want to collectively tackle. So that's sort of our day job, which is really cool and influences a lot of the stuff we're making, but isn't really like, I guess is like something we're really excited about, but we also want to share with you like the things that we've been making as well. So our company's called Closed Forum. We started off in 2016 as a sort of as a theatre company. Both came from a theatre background, and we were making like stuff with us in the room or in the space. So it was about us, but then like over the last 5 years, we've sort of, from each project we've worked on, we've moved from it being live performance to just being full on video game now. And there's sort of like a slow transition throughout where we've worked on like mobile technology to do like touring people around the city to tell them stories and things like that. So yeah, some of the projects that we've worked on. So you can see like we've been sort of consistently almost every year doing 1 or 2 projects together. But it's only really the last couple of years that we've started really like deciding that this is what we want to do. We want to make video games, and we've set it up as a proper little indie studio. One of the things I wanted to talk about is for us, like we have these like 2 guiding principles. And I thought these were really important to us. And when I talked to Adam earlier, he was like, "Are these are? Okay, what are you talking about?" But we have talked about it before. And one of the things is that like the context is the content. And this is a little thing to try to show what I mean by that. Like, so if we're part of like a big festival or something, like when we were part of Leeds Digital Festival, maybe like 50,000 people would hear about our work. And then actually like probably only about 10,000 of those people are going to click through and like watch the trailers and things like that. And then only about 1,000 people are going to turn up to the events and play the video games. So for us, like we want to focus on this 50,000 as much as we do the 1,000. So it means that we're really interested in like ARGs, where the marketing is as much of a game as the end product, or we're interested in like making the stories we tell like not just end when you walk away from the video game, but may end there or may continue, but may have started way before it as well. And the other thing is everything is research and development, is because we are really early on in like learning to code still. And one of the things we've learned through the last few projects is that everything changes once we get it in front of an audience, and like get it being tested by people. So when we've been writing code for games, we could, there's only so much we can test out in our like offices at home, how much it's gonna work. And it's only when we really get it out in front of hundreds of people that we start to learn the real lessons behind it. So it feels like everything is like, everything we do is actually building towards the next thing. This is the first project we worked on, which was a live streamed like show that ran for, I think, 15 hours or so.
Yeah, it was about 13 hours. And this is related to, so back in 2015, I had major heart surgery and at the LGI in Leeds. And when I was actually under the knife, a lot of my housemates had donated a lot of money to the British Heart Foundation. And then my name got inscribed on a big statue heart that was then in Rotherham. So what Matt and I then did was walk for about 13 hours from Leeds to Rotherham, and then live streamed the whole thing, and kind of had live questionnaires, and people could talk to us, communicate to us. And it was sort of a weird hybrid event that kind of use a live stream platform to sort of communicate with the audience, but then do this sort of big a big walk. So I think in total it was 36 miles. And trust me, neither Matt and I are particularly fit, even though I work as a theatre technician. And Matt used to be a postman at the time. We definitely weren't trained or ready for anything like this. It was a quite a big task, but it was good fun, and we made it. And I think over that, in terms of interactions, we had over 5,000 people interact and communicate and watch the video. So we had 5,000 people watch the video. We then had something like 1,000 people like or sort of interact on Facebook. They're live streamed it all through Facebook. And then we had about 500 people actually comment. So it was interesting to go back to what Matt was talking about before. It's that we're still focusing on that big number that first actually saw that content. Even if they just passed by, we can see the stats of them actually just briefly looking at the video, which is quite interesting.
So one of the things we did on this was Adam was like throughout the walk was recording all the statistics that they did in the hospital when he was having his heart surgery, and then like releasing that information throughout the walk. We thought this was like an interesting thing to share, just because it sort of shows like how much it's changed, what we're working on to what we'll get to. And the actual reason that we ended up working together on this is because I was the only person that Adam knew that had unlimited internet on their phone. So I was the only one that could live stream the whole thing and not run out of data. And then because of that, we've been working together on projects for like 5 years. So I'm not obviously not going to show the whole video of that. So then there's a couple of other projects that happened between that were more based on live performance, but we thought we'd show you some of the ones that you might be a bit more interested in. So we worked on this project called The Journey, which started our love of making video games, even though it didn't really start as a video game. It started as like an interactive story. And we ended up making it on, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a piece of software called Twine, which is for interactive storytelling. And we started off with, as you can see here, like each passage is like an individual web page, and they branch off to tell an interactive story. And then this is sort of what that ended up looking like. So it was like multiple branching paths. And the idea behind it is that it would be an interactive story, but it would be told as you walked around the city. So it would tell you like, go to the bus station and open up the next passage. And then when you got to the bus station, a certain piece of music would start playing as you got there, and some story would unfold that was like relevant to that location. So it was like using like gaming mechanics, but we were like playing with it in physical spaces. There was very little code, very, very little code, because we were using Twine, and we were just using copy and paste code that we could find for the style sheet, which was looked like this. You know, it was just changing the look and feel of it. It wasn't really doing anything sophisticated at all. But what I think this did is it taught us some of the like very, very fundamental basics that we absolutely had no idea about before. So here's how it looked, and it looks as basic as it was. We kind of tried to make it look like a ZX Spectrum text adventure. So I'll just sort of skip through. So like some of the images that were, so it like, you could enter your name and what year you were born, and depending on what year you were born, the like look of it would change from like looking like a Spectrum game, or looking like a Game Boy Color game, or looking like a Game Boy Advance game. So like it would have like long loading screen images coming up like an old ZX Spectrum game, even though the technology obviously didn't need it to load that slow. But we tried to give it like that retro look and feel. And then like each area had like an original soundtrack underneath it. So then that moved us on to a much bigger project called The Parliament, which again was another Twine game, but for this one, we'd managed to secure a little bit more funding from Arts Council England and from a commission from a local festival. So with that combined, we worked with not just me and Adam, we brought in like some other people. So we worked with like a sound designer and like a graphic artist to make like the front end of it look a little bit more interesting. And what it essentially ended up being was you played the role of a reporter in the year 2030. And again, you were exploring the city. But you would like pick from different headlines and different stories. So it was like still a multiple choice, but it ended up looking more like a phone app than just like a ZX Spectrum game, or like black screen and white text.
Yeah, if you go back to the beginning, Matt, there's some good examples of it, or near the... So we kind of made it look like the government app.
Yeah, we made it look like it was, yeah, like an actual government app set in the year 2030. Adam, are you all right to just keep checking the chat, see if anything's true, because I've seen a few things have popped up, but I haven't read them.
No, I think it's just all talking about different parts of it. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I'll just skip through a little bits of this. So you then would like click on different news stories and like click on headlines and paragraphs that you would choose. So you like built the stories about the area, and then it would play a piece of music and show you some images based on what your choices were. And the main way that this was different, the last one is we ended up using loads more JavaScript. And again, this was very much a learn as we went kind of thing. We had absolutely no experience in it to start off with. But what we wanted it to do was, rather than you say, I am at the bus station, or I am at Corn Exchange, or I am at the Tetley, or whatever, and like I'm at train station and press a button, we wanted it to like know where you were just by you being there. So we used really basic JavaScript code that wasn't basic to us at all, where we made it so that it knew roughly where you were in the city centre, and then it would present the stories to you and play the music based on that location.
And we also, unfortunately, when we were trying to launch the app, the festival was happening right at the beginning of lockdown. But what we had planned into the code, and what would have happened is, as you went to different venues that at different times as well, you would have different parts of the story pop up. So some of the venues were linked to some of the performance venues in the festival. As you went to, say, one of those venues, if you were there during a festival event, you would have different dialogue pop up than if you went there at a different time of day when there wasn't the festival event happening, or if you went there a week after the festival, you would get different dialogue. So it was all sort of linked to that.
Yeah, and because of that, this was never released. So this took us almost a year to make, and it was supposed to release on the 20th of March last year, which might sound like a bit of a familiar date, as that was the beginning of lockdown. And because it was so tied in with like attending other events that were happening in the city and stories being triggered, we'd have to rework it quite significantly now to be able to release it. And we just like, we'd have to do it for free, which we could do. And we probably will do at some point, but it feels like quite a large task to redevelop all this without a festival marketing it either, because that means we'd have to do all the promotion for it. Whereas before it was going to launch as part of a festival. So it was shit, but it's all right.
And at this point as well, we still had both full-time jobs. So we were very much doing this in our evenings, after work, on our weekends. So I think, as say with a couple of future projects, our partners got very, very frustrated because we were pretty much spending all of our free time working and building this.
And another reason we sort of haven't really revisited this is because the way that we're working on stuff now has completely changed. So during lockdown, Adam started learning how to use Unity, and created this project for his master's degree called The New Normal, which I will put on some video footage of. While Adam, do you want to talk about what this project is and what code you use, how you learn it, and things like that?
Yeah. So I made this game in about 3 months, whilst also working full time and trying to basically learn code from scratch, because all we'd ever really done is basic CSS and HTML, and then that little bit of Java. And so I learned how to animate, how to do basic C#. I wrote everything, all the story as well. Coded, pretty much did everything. So, and that was in a 3-month period, because because I was doing a performance MA, and I wanted to make what I actually wanted my performance MA, my final performance to be, is I wanted to recreate the Twitch plays Pokemon, but actually have that almost in a real world experience, where I, as a performer, were in the center of the screen, in the center of a stage, and then audience could text in where they wanted me to move, and I would physically walk across a giant Game Boy that was built across the stage, and be instructed to move across the room, and I would try and semi-speed run Pokemon Red over a 8-hour period and see how far I got by people texting in and telling me to move to up, down, or press A and B. Because I wasn't able to do that, I thought, well, I still wanted to do something with games or sort of in that way. So I learned how to basically create Unity, and I did this by spending most of my nights I would finish work at 5 o'clock, and I would literally then just be on YouTube watching videos, video after video, testing, practicing, starting from literally learning how to animate a toilet seat from moving up and down. And I will tell you, I spent about 2 days initially figuring out how I could just basically make a simple animation, keep progressively go up and down, and not have to then stick up and then move away and make it down again. So this was basically, I built a house that was basically my memory of all the houses I'd lived in throughout my life, and how then it related to how my memories had changed from the idea from lockdown and being trapped in one house. So it was kind of quite a sort of very arty, very sort of slightly self-indulgent thing to look at, but it sort of felt really relevant in the area we're at, in where we were at that time. And this was July 2020. So yeah, it was a difficult process, but after 3 months, I managed to make a game all on my own. The only thing I didn't particularly do was all the sort of the sprites I used were ones I bought from either the Unity App Store or bought from other places. So no, they weren't my original apps, but so sprites. But everything else is pretty much made by hand in 3 months.
So then that moves us on to our most recent project, which is called Anxiety Arcade, which basically is a 20-minute Unity game about anxiety. It's using our own personal experience of anxiety, and it's not trying to solve anxiety, or it's not trying to give you anxiety or fix your anxiety. It's just really to open up conversations about mental health. And particularly even though we actually pitched this idea because the subject was quite relevant to us before the lockdowns, we felt that it probably felt more relevant now than ever to have something that could be delivered in a COVID-safe way, could happen at physical events with crowds of people, but also could happen with one person and then it gets cleaned down, and another person and it gets cleaned down, which is how we ended up presenting it the first time, because it was still within COVID restrictions. And it's just a repeatable 20-minute experience to get people talking about mental health. So rather than, what I'd love to have done is got you all to play it, but I thought I'll show you some of it as well, and then we can talk about some of the reasons we put certain things into it. Adam can explain a bit more of how we coded bits of it, if that's useful. So this, what it looks like. We worked with a sound designer who each room in this house that you're exploring is like an album. And we wanted to make it feel a little bit like an interactive locked room, kind of like escape room, but also like an interactive album where each room you went into was like a track on an album. We also wanted to make it accessible to people who had never played video games before. So it's quite heavy with the exposition at the start, like how to move a joystick and things what buttons to press. And we gave it this old retro aesthetic because we wanted it to be accessible to people of all ages. So essentially the mission of the game is to leave your house, and each like mini game in it is like a different anxiety that you might face in your day-to-day life.
We very much kind of modeled these mini games on sort of probably typical sort of old like flash games or sort of really old retro sort of activities, as you'll see later on. It'd be like sort of moving your character's head side to side to sort of catch the drops of water as it comes down out of a shower, or to like walk around the space and change the color of every item in the space by interacting with them. There's also little Pac-Man clone in here as well, and a little sort of not Space Invaders, sort of Galaga type clone, not Galaga, yeah, Galaga, Asteroid type clone, sorry.
Asteroid.
And so we tried to like again sort of play with the idea of it being a retro game by adding these different little elements in and making it as sort of, as Matt said, accessible as possible.
So one of the most difficult things for us was creating the character selector and making it so when you selected a certain avatar, like that was a remembered thing throughout the game. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit how you made this?
Yeah, so the character creator I made really early on, and it's horrifically coded and designed, and I would definitely change it now. But basically, what I had to do was sort of in each level now there is all 9 characters are in each level, so that when you open up a next level, what the first thing the code does is delete all the other 8 characters before then your character fades in. So, and it was all done through 1 second, let me just find out exactly what it's called, because forgive me, because I again, learning code from sort of just from myself, I just can't always remember what the proper names are in terms of the items, but I did
That's
this.
okay. We learn on the job every day, and we don't remember stuff, and we Google it, and that's the life of a developer.
Brilliant, because that's exactly how I did it. So yeah, I just made through bool systems. The majority of this game is all made through bool systems, and ended up being quite complicated bool systems that I was having to go, if this is on and this is on and this is on, turn this and off. And it probably screwed myself over quite a bit in terms of how we did that, but that's just because that's what my understanding of it. There's a few different coroutines in there in terms of certain areas, like the text pop up in terms of making sure that if you press A to move the text on quicker, the coroutine quickly snaps that forward, and so the typing as well. But it's all predominantly through bools. There is a few. Let me just check. What's this called? So I'm just going back into. I'm just looking at the Unity code now. So like, and a lot of it is through. And then what we did it through was sort of scriptable objects as well. So a lot of the objects you pick up and a lot of things we do, we sort of assign scriptable objects and then sort of saved a value to the scriptable objects, and that's how we knew. So as soon as you pick a character selector, the scriptable object is almost, the character becomes an item, and it then will that item will then be numbered 1 to 9, and it just remembered that. And so it's kind of, we're doing it all that way. But so as soon as you spawn into this room, there would always be 9 characters on that spot. It's just then it just deletes them after through the bool system. As you can see coming up, this is sort of one of the first mini games we made. It's the first one was the walking river. This is a little shower, and just getting stuff like this for us, just getting the character then to move side to side and move, and then this shower, as you'll see, the shower heads moving down was quite complicated for me trying to figure out how we sort of get gravity to work, but then it's not about in terms of the rigid bodies and things like that.
Do you also, Adam, do you want to talk about the scoring behind it? Because we decided probably about halfway through development that there needed to be a score system, because otherwise there'd be no incentive to replay. So what we wanted is people to like get to the end and it say like you scored 500 out of 2000, and people to go, oh, I've missed stuff, you know, or even if they don't want to go play it again, if you're talking to someone else who has played it, then you might say, oh, I did this, I clicked on this, what did you do? So yeah, is it similar system to get the scoring to work, Adam? How did you do that?
Yeah, it is. So I created basically I created a inventory that then all had values on. So throughout each room is basically an item in an inventory, and then depending on whether you accept it, whether you sort of achieved the score or didn't, it would then number between, it would either be a ball of true or false, or it would then be +1 or minus in terms of the inventory system. So it was kind of, again, very rudimentary, but everything on here is either, again, using a ball for true or false, or just a +1 value to all our inventory items. Again, so a lot of it is all very simply done through inventory, and it's just remembered as a scriptable object that's just assigned. So one of the most frustrating things, though, was kind of realizing, because it was in an arcade machine, and the idea is that it would just go to the end, then it would just go back to the front screen, the main screen again. It was really realizing, and there probably is a way, and hopefully someone could tell me after this, but how to actually fully reset Unity after you've sort of played something. Because what I had to do was basically go back and manually code in to turn all the balls off after, but I didn't know whether there was a way to actually just reset all the balls through a piece of code. And that's something that took me ages to figure out, that I didn't know how to do. And I Googled everywhere, and was on Reddit and was on the Unity servers, and no one could actually tell me how to just reset Unity without actually turning the game. Yeah, basically, or to closing the game.
Not a Unity developer, but I'm sure there's a way of doing that. If there is a Unity developer, please make some noises in the comments.
Yeah.
What I liked about the game is the visuals. They're very sort of disorienting, and some of the controls are a bit awkward. And the way the eyelids open, and it's like you're sort of bleary-eyed waking up in the morning, and it was really very immersive in the way you created it. I have some friends from school who suffer from depression, and they struggle to get out of the house in the beginning of the day, and all the challenges you put in front of people to sort of make it really difficult for them to get out of the house and solve the problems, I thought was a really great concept.
Yeah, so some of the, as you've seen in this, like, we wanted to make them like little mini game challenges, but actually the things you're everyday things like feeding the goldfish or brushing your teeth or finding your house key. But what we wanted to like give the indication of is that all these little things can actually cause quite serious anxiety to some people.
Yeah, like this one. It's really, you've made it incredibly difficult to feed the fish.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's really frustrating.
It's almost impossible to feed with fish. Yeah, you can feed it up to 10 times.
And I played this and I felt such a failure.
Yeah. And because there's no like lose either. You know, it's not like you didn't feed the fish so he dies. It's just like, oh well, that happened, which is kind of like life, is kind of what we wanted to get across. It is possible to feed the fish 10 times, and I think even as the people who made the game, I think our maximum is 4.
Yeah, I think I've seen someone do it 5 times, and that was about it.
So yeah, there's little things that we're tracking throughout it, like time of day as well is also being tracked throughout it. As you like can see up on the side there's a little clock with the time, and that's actually like the time it is in game. So the game runs for 24 minutes, and if you don't finish the game within 24 minutes, and there's little pop-ups at the top as well to tell you what time it is in the day, then you'll just fall asleep where you are, and the game will restart itself. Adam, do you want to talk about the clock? Because I know that was like something particularly difficult, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was linking it all to the to the sprites again, getting them to sort of pop up at the right times to the clock was quite complicated. Again, it's just because it's been a few months since I looked at this. I'm just going to quickly open up the code.
So yeah, this is making it look like an old Windows 95 computer desktop. We wanted to give some of it like a timeless kind of feel. So like she picked up an iPod, she is on an old computer, she is on an answer phone at one point. And it's, we didn't want to necessarily say like that this is set back in time, but we also didn't want to make it look super modern either, because we found when we're playing with like more modern graphics, it would be, to people who weren't really into video games, it wasn't as accessible and might put people off. So we had to like learn how to make like really simple mini games, like a fighting mini game here to fight the bin. There's also like secret games hidden throughout it. So for example, there, like she very briefly walked over the start bar, but if you went in the start bar, there's like a secret game that's in there that you can find through the start bar. And that'll have its own little narrative and give you additional score. So we wanted to like really reward people for exploring and trying to push the boundaries of it and like click on everything. So there's loads of things like if you click on the chair, for example, it spins and that gives you 10 points at the end. If you click on the briefcase, that gives you some points as well. Just to play with it. So you can like go back to the bedroom at the start. We thought probably 90% of people aren't even going to do that. But if you do, you could also finish the game just by going back to bed, because we wanted that to be like a valid way of finishing your day if you have anxiety. But it's okay just to like look after yourself and go back to bed. And we also wanted to make it so that even though the whole thing is like, how do you get outside? You can actually just leave through the front door at any point. It just doesn't tell you that. And we wanted to make that as like a little secret way to finish it early. If you just click on the door a few times, it will say like, no, I can't go outside, I'm too anxious. But then if you just click on it a few more times, you'll go, okay, you're right, I can do this. And the game can just be finished in like 2 minutes. And we wanted to do that so that it would have, so people might play, it would like generate stories that people could tell the people that were playing it, so it wasn't 100% the same for everyone. And the reason we did that is because the reason we made this thing is to get people talking about mental health. And if people weren't talking about the game, then they weren't going to talk about mental health, I guess. So we tried to build things in it that got people like talking about what happened to them and in it. So there is a linear path and you can just play through, but there's also like lots of little secret bits as well.
Yeah, this bit kind of shows the slight deterioration that you get from the stress and anxiety as well, with the sort of words popping up from the news, and then there'll be more stuff that pops up here in a minute. I get the idea, and because this was in an arcade machine, we also wanted to give those avenues for people to leave early as well, feel like they still had a full experience, because spending 20 or 24 minutes playing an arcade machine can be a bit long. So that's why we had those little avenues so people could jump out when needed.
Yeah. One of the things we'd probably do if we were making this again is make like a much faster arcade version that's just for mini games. So you can just play for 5 minutes. But we found in play testing that people really wanted to play all the way through. So if we did that, we'd have to like play test it more with a bunch of people. So part of the process for making this was we got a commission from a festival called Compass Festival. And then we got funding from Arts Council England for National Lottery. And we worked with some of the same people, the same like sound artist we'd worked on that other project, the Parliament, and brought him back to work on. And then we worked with a writer just to go over our scripts, like our story script, and just like edit it down a little bit and polish it up. We worked with a local charity called Leeds Mind, who gave us some mental health resources so that when people played the game, there was like resources on hand if people needed it. And we worked with some outside eyes of like a developer and some like experts who make interactive storytelling, just to like give us a little bit of advice, because it was also new for us making something of this scale. Even though like making a 20-minute game isn't actually a long game compared to video games, but for us this was like a pretty huge undertaking.
Yeah, especially as again, we were still working full time on other jobs whilst making this as well. So this was very much an evening work that we did all this in.
How many hours do you think you've put into this game?
I would say, with all the learning, easily about 200.
Easily,
Okay.
if not more. Like,
Not more, yeah.
yeah, I would say probably double that. Like, it was like it was like 4 or 5 days a week, evenings, and then most days on weekends for about 8 months.
Yeah.
Because part of it as well was like we worked with some game assets that we bought, but then we wanted to edit them all so they all looked consistent, even though actually it doesn't all look consistent as much as we'd probably want it to. But we edited all the art assets and worked with editing the soundtrack down and the story. But one of the most significant things was like the coding for us, like starting from scratch. It was actually just like a lot of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And a lot of like finding code and editing it and seeing how that worked for us. We've made some mini games based on like the Unity tutorials. We were just like rolling balls. We sort of had to learn as we went. And originally this was going to be like a 5-minute repeatable game. And as we kept developing it, the scale of it kept growing, but the amount of time we had to make it didn't change. So we just had to keep putting more and more time into it. So yeah, I think we're on to like the last section of the game. At this point, does anyone have any questions on this game in general, or like anything about it? Don't know what's in the chat. So
Just asking, where can we play it?
That's a very good question. So one of the issues we came across was optimizing it for different devices. So originally we wanted like a arcade game version. It was like in a cabinet that you had to go to like events to go play, and then an online version. And we found that with the online version, like the frame rate was so much different that you could run so fast that you would go through a wall, even though like we'd like barriered that off so you couldn't go through a wall. Or like the frame rate would be so slow that it'd be unplayable. So we're still like working on optimizing it. We've made a demo version, which we'll send you all a link after if you're interested, which I think, is that online now, Adam?
That is online now, yeah.
Yeah, which is like just like 2 of the areas that you can play through.
And I think from a lot of the Q&A, all the work we did, sort of all the sort of quality assurance stuff we did, a lot of people were trying to say that it lost something playing it on a computer as opposed to playing it in the arcade. The arcade sort of the tangibleness of being there and actually being physical sort of added a lot to the experience. So we're sort of umming and ahhing on sort of how wide we could distribute it as a non-arcade product. It's free to play as an arcade, but it's just because we're worried about keeping it as a artwork being an arcade and just touring it around at different places and doing it that way. But that's kind of something we're debating and looking at and see if that's a feasible way of doing it.
So far we had it in the Trinity Shopping Centre in Leeds for I think 5 or 6 days, and then we brought it back a platform in Leeds next to the train station as part of Leeds Digital Festival. We only have one arcade unit, and it's not the cheapest for us to like install it and have someone like managing it as well. So if it's in a location where isn't a usual arcade, we've had someone like sat near it in case like anyone wants any resources or ask any questions about it. So it sort of needs staffing as well. But what we're doing next is it's going to live in Sheffield Video Game Museum starting next year. So it's just going to be like playable all the time. And then we're going to have a second cabinet that we like take around to different events and festivals. Because we want this to be like part of our job. One of the issues now is like, we don't know whether or not to just give this away and work on the next thing or try to monetize this in some way. Like we can charge to take it to a festival, but we can't charge to take it to a festival if we've given it away for free online.
Cliff is asking, how is the arcade unit set up? Is it a PC with monitor in an arcade machine case?
Yes. Yeah. So we debated long and hard over this about the best way to do it. And in the end, like the most cost-effective by an arcade machine that had Hyperspin emulator on it with a PC inside it with a monitor. And then we just removed the Hyperspin off it and just put on our Unity game and just made it so that booted up on load up of Windows. Yeah, so it's just a Windows PC inside it.
Cool. And he's got another. Have you considered approaching charities like Mind, etc., to allow those that suffer badly from this can use the game to learn it's okay to not be okay?
Yeah, so we worked with Mind to help market this and get it out to like some of their service users and groups they work with. I think the next step for us is find more partners to like share it with. As you can see here, the score that we got in the top corner is quite abysmal. And it says it gives you some of your stats here of some things that you managed to do or didn't do. Yeah, so this is that's the game basically. We are still looking for places to take it next, and we're really interested in like getting more feedback on it and more people playing it. But for us, what this inspired us to do is like we're really interested in like making the next thing now, as much as like getting this out to new audiences. We were lucky that we got like arts funding and presented this at like an arts festival to like show this and develop this. But we know that that's not really sustainable or repeatable too much unless we tie it in with like pre-existing art events and get commissions like we did with the last few things.
So you mentioned how you're going to monetize this. So my suggestion would be just to let it out there and use it as a sort of walking CV of work you've done. Get it noticed by people. Yeah. And then the opportunities will just arrive. So Cliff has suggested DDD events. So there's a free conference in our domain called Developer, where loads of developers go to it and talk about .NET related projects. Mm-hmm. And there's also NDC London, they'd be very, very interested. It's a very interesting application of .NET technologies. So, and again,
that's great. Thank you.
Hundreds, thousands of developers go there.
Wow.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, great.
That's really useful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're looking at taking it to like a event called Now Play This, which is like a prototyping and game development event. But we're definitely like keen to find new places to take it. I think you're right though, it being like a card or like a CV, walking CV kind of thing is probably what we need to do with it next. I think there's a couple of places we'd like to share it, a couple of events and festivals coming up.
Yeah, you know those credits you had rolling at the end?
Yeah.
Stick them on the front of the cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Another really good idea, yeah.
Yeah, so we, the cabinet design is, so as you see here, so it's just like that printed vinyl with some of the images, just like mocked up like something that fit it, and we're thinking of like having one side of it like have a bit more information about us on the side of it, or for the one that we're getting done next, because it's going to live at National Video Game Museum, like probably the bottom half on one side will be information about the museum, and then the top half will be like information about us and how you can contact us.
Yeah. And then kind of the short term thing we're thinking about looking at expanding with this is making a almost a companion app. Because one thing we found that when with it, we had, in terms of with Anxiety OK, we had loads of resources for people to take home at the end, which were sort of like posters and flyers, but it ended up being that they had like 20 different links to look at in terms of resources. So what we're looking at doing next is creating a app working with a mental health professional that when people finish playing Anxiety OK, there's almost a one-stop place to go to then look up and look at Anxiety after that. And then after they've kind of worked through this sort of mini playable app, which will probably be like a single screen experience that just kind of talks them through things, then they can go find the other resources after that. But we're looking for sort of sort of an extra place for sort of an additional bit of content for people to take away once they're finished.
So just answering one of the questions in the chat about, does it have like a leaderboard on it? No, it doesn't. And that sort of ties in with what Adam was saying earlier about how difficult it was for us learning code at this stage to like reset everything for another game. So we wanted it so it remembered everyone's score and like listed the score at the end. But then that was causing issues where not everything was resetting. So you would start the second game, like I would walk away and Adam would walk up and play it. And like maybe when he got to the shower mini game, it thought that it was already finished, or that some of the score was already visible on it, or things like that, because we needed to find a way to like completely reset everything after. And that's not to say it's not possible. It's definitely possible, because like all arcade games do it. We just hadn't learned at that stage how to make it remember specific things and not other things. So we were essentially like resetting everything at the end of every game. So
there have been lots of suggestions in the chat. I don't know if you've been following that, but I'd grab a copy of those before we close the session tonight.
No,
yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the issue was we were very much, as we started the coding for it, like the first couple levels, we were still very much learning what we were doing. Oh, God, right down. Sorry, my dog's just jumped on me. Yeah, we were very much learning as we were going. Because of that, we sort of made some very janky, very sort of basic code, and sort of the infrastructure is really janky. And then from there, we just kept on building on top of it. Whereas we probably should have scrapped the beginning bit, redone it a bit more once we'd sort of learned a bit more, and then built from there. So, but I think for next time, it's going to be it will be a lot better, as we can sort of have a bit more of understanding on how to sort of make a good base rather than a very janky base.
Yeah, I think what we didn't have with this process that we definitely want to do is, if we got funding again, is just like pay someone to look over the code, because we want to learn how to code this. and build more games in the future. But there's probably like really simple things that someone could have just gone, no, but you're doing this all wrong, or find this sample code here, or things like that would be, really like beneficial. So at the moment we're just putting in for some more funding to do some more work on it.
Yeah, Dan, that'd be really lovely to have a chat after, whether it's after this or some point in the future. That'd be really, really nice just to kind of talk through stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I was just going to say, it's no problem if you want some help. I mean, I do have some time after this if you want to have a quick chat, but also I'm usually available in an afternoon, weekday afternoons after sort of 2 o'clock. If you want to have catch-ups at any time.
That'd be really lovely.
It'd be great to maybe set a meeting at some point and have a chat through some stuff, and you can have a look at the code.
I'll send through our emails now. We can set up a chat. That'd be really lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, great, cool, no problem.
So that's sort of where we are at the moment with it, and that's I guess that's covers like what we're
great. It's a fascinating project. I enjoyed playing the game. You definitely conveyed it left me anxious. So I think we succeeded from that point of view. Really interesting, guys. I wish you every success in the future, and do let us know how you get on, and feel free to come to Leeds Sharp in person.
Definitely. Yeah, we'd love to.
When we go back to in person.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that's it from us, but
any final questions from anyone in the audience? Otherwise we'll wrap up.
Is there anywhere where we can go to see more detail? What I'm looking for is something I can share with somebody else about the project and about about what you've done. I'm super impressed with the whole game. Someone in my family suffers bad with anxiety, which is why I was asking about the game and the charity Mind. So they're awesome. But this is I'd like to be able to share it with someone if that's okay. If you don't mind, that is.
Yeah, 100%.
So our website is just closedforum.co.uk, and I'll pop that in the chat. There's information about this.
Can you put any links on the meetup event page? Because they get emailed out to everyone who said yes, even if they didn't attend.
We'll also put the link to the demo of it as well that's online.
That'd be great.
And if we manage to get a finished full version of it online as well for people to play remotely, we'll send it over to you as well.
Wrong camera.
Cool. Well, I'll call that a wrap then.
Thank you. I hope it's been interesting.
Don't forget to stop the video.
Yep.